So who guessed that I'd be hiking on the Pacific Crest Trail?
Hold on. This isn't going to be that kind of video. I would like, with your indulgence, to tell you a story. The reason I'm asking for your indulgence is because I have no idea how this story ends. How did this story start? It began sometime in the early 1970s when my mother signed my brother up for the Big Brothers organization. My mom was really good at, if ultimately a colossal failure, at trying to provide her sons with positive male role models. In my case, I ended up with the best possible male role model, a man of integrity, salt of the earth. In my brother's case, we got Ed. I don't remember much about Ed. I was probably 8 or 9 years old when he first appeared. But I do remember he had one of those kind of shithole little homes plunked out in the middle of nowhere in Joshua Tree, California. I talk about this a bit in my book, False Starts, but the story didn't end there. I remember my experiences in Joshua Tree with a mixture of emotions. I basically had my own motorcycle to ride around anywhere I wanted to go. Sure, it had at most 50 cc's, but my brother and sister had their own, far nicer than my own, to ride. And we made a great team out there, which is saying something because, well, we mostly hated each other's guts. I remember the sweetness of that ride, juxtaposed against all the dirty tricks we would pull on each other, against the laughs we had, against the kind of family life that was appalling then and mostly acceptable now. At least on reality TV it is. For a few years, we spent quite a few vacations at this shack of Ed's. I don't know what the arrangements were, and I really don't want to know. I'm not certain if my mom had been dating Ed. I can't be at all sure if Ed just wasn't a really nice guy. And that's been on my mind quite a bit, that not knowing, festering away in my head. And speaking of things on my mind, that's what makes Joshua Tree so weird. Because after we stopped going, I thought I forgot it. I thought I put it aside and left it behind all those years ago. And then, only a few years ago, maybe a decade now, I began to feel this pull in my gut and in my head and in my heart. Now, I'm a diagnosed schizophrenic, so it's important that when I feel some kind of weird impulse, a pull that is telling me I need to be somewhere, it's important that I understand where this is coming from. And that was one of my problems. I couldn't figure it out. All I knew was that I had to get out into the desert, which, to be very clear, is not even a place I like. I'm a beach bum. I grew up in Orange County, California, which is a suburb of the beach. I spent much of my life in the water or in the sand, and recently just cycling down to the beach is wonderful. I love the smell of the ocean and the breeze and the life, none of which are in the desert. Right? But I felt it in my gut. I had to go. I even started contemplating hiking the Pacific Crest Trail to satiate this need to go to the desert. I was out there 2 years, and I'll be back next year too. And yet, that's still not enough. Now, here's what I haven't been telling you. I went to Joshua Tree. Went a few months ago. I even filmed a bit because I wanted to talk about this very thing, this strange compulsion.
Hi. So I'm blocking the dinosaur. So I'm out visiting a couple friends out here by Cabazon, by Banning, by the middle of absolutely nowhere. Hold on a second. Hi. So I'm out in the middle of the desert having my morning coffee. And why am I out in the middle of the desert having my morning coffee? Well, the funny thing about that is I really don't know. So, now that I'm in Joshua Tree, I gotta tell you, it's all rather disappointing. Because see, when I came here back in the 70s, it was all empty, barren. It was a lost place. Now, it's filled with houses and campers, and it feels more like a getaway than somewhere where you would run away.
You see, I thought I'd go out there and see everything that I remembered from, well, let's just say quite a while ago and leave it at that. But you can't go home again. And by some law of math that I didn't pay enough attention to back at John Adams Elementary, you can't go back to Joshua Tree either. Because although it was the same pile of rocks and dirt and rocks and scrub and cactus and rocks and dirt, nothing was the same. Every feature I could remember had been erased, every familiar landmark expunged. I felt very much as though I had stepped through the thin veil that divides parallel universes. In the next, everything was the same, except for Joshua Tree. But okay, problem solved. It wasn't the same. So, no reason to go back, right? I'd done my part. Joshua Tree hadn't done theirs. We could now call it a day, right? So explain to me why I can't get it out of my head. It's like an old girlfriend you can't stop thinking about, or a particular stromboli that you ordered at some out-of-the-way Italian restaurant, and you know that if you eat it, it will be gone. But if you don't, you'll never taste the sauce and the cheese. And I'll bet there's olives. I mean, there have got to be olives. And maybe this is a good time for me to mention that my brain gets away from me at times. And this only gets more annoying as I get older. You see, when I was 20, hell, when I was 30, I had a very strong sense about the world, what was right and what was wrong, what the rules were. But as I age, the rules fall away before me like dying men. And who cares about what is right and what is wrong in a world that is post-truth? I spend fewer hours pursuing truth and more hours pursuing peace and harmony. And yes, those are hippie virtues, but I don't consider myself a throwback, you see, because I think I'm ahead of my time by at least a few years. These kids coming up right now just might bring back love to the world. And who can say what would happen then? As I said, I don't know the ending to this story. It may not have an end. But I was lying in bed just now, as I write this, not as I record it. Just consider me 2 to 3 sides of the same chronological space traveler. And I kept seeing that road in my mind. That road that runs through Joshua Tree. Highway 62. I kept seeing that road in my mind's eye, knowing I'll go back. There's a very good chance that I may never know why. Perhaps as I've grown older, I've somehow taken every regret and heartbreak, shame and indignity, things I find myself having less and less sympathy for, and perhaps I've found a way of putting them all in a nice little pocket. Every smile of every woman I loved and will never see again. The laughter of the children I'll never have. The feeling of being recognized for my craft. As I wrote those last words, something stopped me from going on, and I looked back at what I'd written thus far. They're all pretty nebulous when you look at them, the words I've written so far, fairly insignificant. In the face of the universe, I'd be fortunate to be simply a blink. I won't be remembered for very long, and my contributions to the world will be short-lived, as it is with most people. I can see a newer generation catching up, a smarter generation, a more capable generation. I know how little time I have. As if that wasn't enough, I realized some time ago that I've reached that age where I've forgotten more than I remember. And what memories I do have must be seen as suspect. What with all the booze and drugs and stupid decisions I've made in my life. So then, what do the smiles of every woman I loved matter to me now? I can only hope, and let's say I like to suspect, that I appreciated them enough then, even if I can't quite remember them right now. And if I needed a kid, I would have stolen one from a mall like any decent person. And let's hope she was at least 18 with a thing for older guys, maybe writers. And I don't really care who recognizes me. I get to sit down and get Joshua Tree out of my head for maybe a few months. Maybe a few weeks. Before I'm out there once again. Maybe I've stuffed everything away in Joshua Tree until its gravity, even if I do question my own mind, the bulk of these fading memories has its own mass, until its gravity cannot help but pull me back. This is the ride I'm on. This is the amusement park. And there you have it. You've just survived another Ken LaSalle video. For more information about new releases, projects in the works, or even stuff from the archives, head on down to kenlasalle.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Twitter, and all around social media, just as long as it's called Facebook or Twitter. Thanks for your support, as always. Be sure to subscribe to this channel, and I'll be back soon with more nonsense.